So thank you everybody who watched our previous video. We really appreciate it. And actually, this month is STD Awareness Month, and it got me thinking about HIV specifically, especially because I was reading an article and it said that like one in every four young gay men or gay Latino men will be diagnosed with HIV. And so that's something that as a gay Latino man myself, I'm very curious, um, and I think it's important to have a conversation about this with other folks to see what's going on and what can we do to increase awareness and decrease stigma and also reduce the number of HIV infections. So, but before we go into the conversation, how about we want to introduce ourselves. So, Alexander, and I am one of the persons who's doing cluster conversations.
I'm Brian, and I'm another person doing cluster conversations.
I'm Franklin, and I'm just a volunteer.
Not just a volunteer.
Just a volunteer. I do
Volunteers are very important.
They make things happen.
Yeah.
I'm Daniel, and I am a project coordinator for a sexual health program, and then I do a lot of charity and activism outside the community as well.
Yeah. So, like I said earlier, the statistic is really, crazy. I mean, the one in every four, it's no joke. This is coming from the CDC. And what do you guys, how have you guys seen HIV impact your community?
Like myself, I was born in Guatemala, and then I came here when I was young, and it took me a while to learn English, and having people that can speak your language is a huge benefit. And sometimes having those individuals in, health facilities or having them be the sexual counselors is a huge benefit because people can see themselves in the persons that are helping them out.
So definitely language seems to be a barrier, and because of language, not having access to those services.
And sometimes individuals are scared because of their immigration status or because they are not aware that there are programs to help them access healthcare for free.
Regardless of immigration status, right?
And it's crazy that people find this out and they're like, oh my God, where has this been? Why have I just heard about this? I'm like, well, this has been going on forever, But it's like, where are we putting out this information where the individuals that are in need of it aren't, receiving it?
Growing up, in my family, we would not my parents, or at least in my family, we would not have healthcare because my mom was just too scared to sign us up for healthcare. They're just scared of being the information was gonna give out to the immigration.
So in the study or the research that I saw, like I said, it's one in every four man that is Latino, that defines Latino and gay, and then not only that, but it said that, for example, I think it was 8% or 80% of Latinos, mostly who are contracting HIV, are men, and it made me think why. And the one thing I thought about, and I really want to see your opinion on this, is I think personally, I think because a lot of men are just not very comfortable with going to a doctor. It's not a thing, Usually, a lot of more like mother figures take that role of taking the children to to the doctor, or at least that's in my experience, especially being raised in a single parent household. That was like that. So I think a lot of men are not taught to go to the doctor. They depend on their parents, and then once you grow up, well, you're like, well, I don't know what to do now, right? What do you think of that?
I think you touched on a big topic, which is culture. Our culture is really different. Whether for mine it looked a little bit different, but it still is attached to our culture.
Mm-hmm.
My parents came here from Guatemala with me, and so healthcare access over there looks really different. It's pretty much home remedies. I'm gonna burn some tortillas, put them in water. We're gonna boil it. We're gonna drink it, and you're good. And put some Vicks on you. And so that's my parents' concept of healthcare. And for me, it wasn't until I actually started working that I even had access to healthcare. And even then, I didn't even use it. And so for me, it didn't happen until, I had gone to the doctors a few times, mainly for emergencies. And it wasn't until I got access to PrEP 3 years ago that I even started seeing my doctor consistently. And then making appointments to see them outside of just prep and just, hey, I have a pain in my ear. I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna go check it out. And it turns out I had an ear infection. And normally I wouldn't do anything. I would just, Mom, burn paper and like
Do something.
or some random thing. And I think culture has a lot to do with that. And so when they immigrated here, they didn't understand the concept of what healthcare looked like here and the fear of immigration. Even though eventually they became citizens, that fear, that stigma, all that negativity that they've come with still lingers even after they've already jumped through all the hoops. And I think that instead of teaching us how to navigate it, they still instill that fear or instill that lack of knowledge into us.
And it's not on purpose, right?
Yeah,
it's just because they didn't. Nobody taught them, so they don't know, right? Is your experience similar to that, or
very similar? I mean, just growing up as well, home remedies. That's about it. We would not even go to like hospitals or clinics. My mom was like, "You have this, you have a cough, right? We're gonna get you a tea and caldo de pollo, and you'll be good the next
chicken
morning."
soup.
Yeah.
Chicken soup for the soul.
Yeah, you'll be good. That's our healthcare growing up.
Yeah, and so there's lack of knowledge what healthcare is here, and there's also sometimes that mistrust in the system.
Correct. Yeah, big.
Where does the mistrust come from?
Well, just hearing the news of deportations and just hearing in the news every day. At least my family likes after work they come to watch the news and all you hear is just deportations, and they always with that fear in their mind they're always like, okay, we gotta we not give our information to no one, hide information from, just protect our information really well. So.
And that kind of reminds me of for example, HIV. Also, I feel like the fear is very similar.
Yeah.
You're so afraid that you're just make sure you don't get it or something like that. Instead of being more knowledgeable or trying to become more knowledgeable, right? Because once you are more aware of how you get contracted and things like that, then you can hopefully not have that fear.
Yeah, I still remember the very first time I got tested for HIV. I never even went back for my results. I was like, I don't want to know. And I think I went a year or two before I ever got another test. And then I got my results, they were negative. And I remember I was like, I'm never going to have sex again. I don't want to go through that anxiety.
I've heard that many times as a tester.
Right?
Before, as a previous tester.
I know, me too. and I laugh, because it's so unrealistic. And in having that fear and that stigma, it actually creates so much anxiety that we go and do it again, and then we beat ourselves up. And I remember I would even go and get tested after never having sex from the last time I got tested, and still having anxiety of oh my god, what if I got something even though I didn't do anything? Oh my god. And I would just remember sitting in those, at the spot, and when it was still by Citibank, and I would remember sitting there, and I was just like, oh my god. And every sexual experience that I had would just replay in my head, and I would guilt myself. And sex should be great and pleasurable, and you shouldn't have to have that guilt attached to something like that.
It takes away the fun out of sex.
Yeah.
Right?
Growing up, my family didn't talk about sex. The topic wasn't even touched, or we'll see a little sex scene on the soap operas, the novelas. We're
oh yeah.
They'll change the channel, and that's So the sex conversation I had with my friends growing up, in high school, college, and then support groups that I've gone to, which is really, they're awesome. Which I learned a lot about how to protect yourself and sexual play and boundaries, which is a big thing too.
Ultimately, you learn from your parents, whether you're just watching or whether you're having some type of dialogue. They're the first people that really educate you or talk to you about any of that. And I remember my dad once taught me how to put a condom on, and he used the joystick of his stick shift car. And
while we were driving.
Right. I was like, I don't think that's safe. The condom or the no, you driving. But I remember because he felt awkward having that conversation. I felt awkward having that conversation. And we don't have a culture of being open to talk about these things. Everyone's gonna have sex at one point, whether that looks like full penetrative sex, whether it's, between male and female, male, whatever. At one point, somebody has it. And so why not have open discussions about it? And I think a lot of parents never had that discussion with their parents, therefore they're not going to have that discussion with their children. And you create this culture of having this big pink elephant around sexuality.
Getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and you're creating an issue.
Growing up now that I'm over 18 and going to doctor on my own and joining AIDS life cycle, and they're like, why are you doing it? And doesn't AIDS mean SIDA in Spanish? And they're like, do you have AIDS? Like, no, I'm just doing it because. So that's how the conversations come from with my family. Like, just do the events that I do is like, oh, why are you doing this? Oh, because they need help in this organization and they do good. They give free services to people that are low income and can't afford pills for the treatment to feel better and save lives at the end of the day.
I think, at least to me, what I'm getting from this conversation right now is that sometimes we're telling wanting to tell our parents, why didn't you teach me, or why do you know about things? But then at the same time, we have to take a step back and realize, well, unfortunately, nobody taught them.
Yeah.
So in a way, it seems like we have to, in a way, inform them.
Yeah.
So then we continue having that open conversation.
And and as gay men, there's only a limited amount of things that they can teach us because they're not having the same type of sex that we're having, And as much as we'd want them to teach them, we pretty much, as me as a queer man, I had to teach myself a lot of things. I still remember the days when I used to say like, oh my god, I would never date somebody who's HIV positive. Ugh. And to think of how I used to think is like disgusts me now.
For those parents who, because they are not knowledgeable about sexuality, maybe, that unfortunately when somebody comes out, I know that, for example, for me when I came out, it was a big deal and they even get kicked out, and I know that unfortunately that story is something that happens too many times, and then that can lead to many other risks, right? Like, people, having to engage in sex work to be able to have a place to sleep, right? Can you think of any suggestions for solutions for us to be able to kind of like increase awareness and decrease stigma about HIV in our Latino gay community?
Well, increase awareness, maybe nonprofit or organizations working together and like having brochures, go out there to the Latino communities, set up a booth, pass brochures.
Yeah, being more intentional, right?
Yeah, be more intentional and just have have conversations, with your everyday people. Yeah. Have conversations because this helps a lot. And also that model that we have, like Altamed's model, gay support, they should have like at least a little model for parents from like those organizations.
Like something like showing parents supporting their children.
Correct. Yeah, and then showing them like give them a little sexual health 101 class about gay. Yeah. So they could understand a little better, support your kids. Like, okay, I know this, I know that. This.
Yeah. So not just campaigns like reaching out to the gay community, because the reality is there is a lot of campaigns that reach out to the gay community, but also campaigns that reach out to those who are around gay folks, supporting them, like the parents.
Correct.
Okay, that's actually I think that's a great idea. I don't know how many those campaigns are, but do you have any solutions?
Every time like I'm asked that question, I always just say like, I remember when I was growing up, we all have role models, but I never really had a role model that looks like me. So I always said like, I have to be the person that I wanted to be, that I needed when I was younger.
So it sounds like it's very important, that mentorship be available. Like not only, we don't think mentorship like the generation before, but yes, but also the ones in our generation, the people, older generations, because in reality, we should have conversation like throughout, right, regardless of how old someone is.
Yeah, and I think we all should have mentors. I have older mentors. I have younger mentors, realistically,
right.
That are teaching me things.
Speaking of like, solutions and conversations, I think having conversations about like taboos, like sex, I think it's such a most important thing. And in fact, CDC has a campaign specifically, targeting young gay men, or gay men, I believe, and it's Start Talking, Stop HIV. right? So the more we talk about it, the more we can, you know, increase awareness in our community, and people can use that awareness to really be able to address any issues related to HIV. So I would encourage people to check it out. Another thing is that recently the Poz Magazine, I don't know if you had a chance, but the Poz Magazine just released a article about finding your voice, youth leadership, and HIV, and specifically also talking about two other Latino gay men and what barriers and solutions they suggested when it comes to HIV impact in the Latino community. So I think that's very important. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
Well, that's a good read. I want to read it.
Yes, you can take this one.
I think for me, it's just reach out to, some of the people that you see out in your community. If you have any questions, somebody you trust, and start having conversations and make them just be normal, a normal part of your everyday talks. Like, hey, did you get tested? Yeah, I came positive for gonorrhea, but I got treated. And having these conversations that may feel uncomfortable become a lot more natural, and doing it until it feels natural. I think that's one of the things that I've always tried to teach, because it happens,
Yeah.
There's no point in beating yourself up for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us. You did mention AIDS Life Cycle.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make sure to include your links in our videos.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
please feel free to check them out and donate. What inspired you, just quickly, what inspired you to do AIDS Life Cycle?
Well, for me, growing up, I was watching the AIDS documentaries, how it affected our community. And I didn't know I was gay back then. Growing up there, I was like, oh wow.
But he knew it was our community.
Yeah, but right now I know that it was my community, that I'm gay, gay man, and so it devastated me to hear like all these lives just passing away because of this disease.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to do something about it, and then I heard about AIDS Life Cycle about 2 years ago, and then they fundraise money and we cycle. I'm not a big cycling person, but they fundraise money, and that money goes towards the LGBT Center LA, which helps people of color, anybody that has it,
Yeah.
anybody that needs help and with healthcare needs. So, and it'll be free for them. So that inspired me.
And how long is the ride?
It's 7 days. It's a 7-day ride. It's 545 miles. Starts in San Francisco and ends here in LA. This year it's ending in downtown LA, so that should be fun at City Hall.
Oh, cool.
And then for me, it's I had signed up 2 years ago, and I wasn't able to do it due to like work. And then during that year, someone really close to me gave me that call. And I was the first person they called when they got their positive result. And I remember how much that affected me, because up until that point, I've known people, who are living with HIV. I've told people, I've given I've disclosed positive results as a tester. But it had never been as personal as someone whom I love and whom I cared for. And someone so young too, and I was just like, you're just, you became that statistic, that I am trying to, fight against. And so I told myself that I would ride for that individual. Like, that was my motivation. Every time I was like trekking up a hill, and I was like, oh my god, my butt, my legs, my calves. I would just think of like what drove me, and it got me through the ride. And now it's like, it became such a beautiful experience that I just want to keep that memory going and keep that momentum, and want to just participate in whichever way I can.
Awesome. So again, I'm gonna put the links on the video, and also I'm gonna put the link to the magazine. So please take a read, like, share our video, and yeah, thank you guys for having this conversation. And I encourage everybody to continue conversations like this. Thank you.